wait a minute. Now, you've been seeing my lips moving. You didn't hear a word I was saying. But I'm not going to go back through all of that again. As I was broadcasting, I was looking, I didn't have one of the buttons pushed on the screen. But anyway, be sure and check out KUAW Radio anywhere that you can. You know, we're on all of the listening apps. All you have to do is go to Google and search KUAW. That's Knowledge, Understanding, and Wisdom, Kansas City's global community radio station. So as we get ready to go into today's thing, this is the day before Election Day. So this is Election Eve. And if you had a chance to vote till 5 o'clock, I think all the early voting is definitely closed now. I think in Kansas it closed at 12 o'clock. So now we, and I include myself in that, have to wait until 6 a.m. tomorrow morning to go out and cast your vote. And there's a lot of things to be voted on, and I know you've been seeing so many broadcasts and commercials, and after tomorrow, that'll be over with, so then we can get back to just watching the boob tube for what it is. But we're going to give you some information on some of the things that you don't see on television all the time. There's 4 amendments that the state of Missouri has up, and the Kansas City City Council has some. I didn't take the time to look up some of the stuff going on over in Kansas City, Kansas. But feel free, if you want to contact me and tell me what's going on over in Kansas City, Kansas, what are some of the issues that you have or some of the things that are on your ballot issues. Not the candidates that are running, but some of the ballot issues, because a lot of times we go in and we know we want to vote for this person or that person and this person, that person. We've seen all their commercials, but you don't see as much about the ballot issues. Now, here in Missouri, one big thing we did see was the legalization of marijuana. So we're going to go over a little bit of that, which and give you some of the things that we want you to consider so that you can, make sort of an educated vote. At least you'll heard about it. Because when you walk in there and you see all this stuff wrote up, and sometimes it's real long write-ups and stuff that you don't really get a chance to read them. You don't want to take the time to read all of that. You didn't take the time in advance to read all of that. So trying to give you a little bit more information to help you out tomorrow. We're not here to tell you who to vote for or which way to vote, yay or nay on things. We want to remain neutral on that, so we've invited people to come and speak, and we have either Republicans or Democrats or independents, anybody running for office that would like to be on KUAW Radio, and that's at any election time that comes up. Then we open up the doors, we open up our airways that people can use them, people can come in and vote or tell people about what issues they're on, so that's what we like to do here, just give you the information, you make up your mind, and you make your decision. Now, the other thing that we do here at KUAW, since it is knowledge, understanding, and wisdom, is that we give you some information on what's going on out in that technology world. There's a lot of things happening. We had some great things happen here. Part of KC Goes Tech. We were one of the cohorts in a teaching senior citizens, I should say, basic computer training. We had a class, the Black Family Technology Awareness Association was hosting it. We had a lady, Miss Rosalind Sykes, who was giving a good lesson on basic computers, and we had some very good students come in. And that's one thing that we want to make sure that we do. A lot of times, we take computers for granted. I mean, it's like I've been using computers since in the 90s, so I'm thinking that, it's just you just get the computer and you use it. But there's a lot of people that aren't digital natives. They didn't grow up when there were computers around. Computers is something that came around after they were already grown, after a lot of them had even raised families. So they didn't even have kids around the house using computers. So those are some of the people that you still want to reach and let them know that the computer age, this digital age, is for them also, that they don't need to miss out on it. So all we have to do is have training like we all did, because none of us were born knowing how to use it. You all had to learn. So that's something that we're doing. And we've just got through with our very first class. Now, we're not going to run classes back to back, but we're looking at doing classes for senior citizens every quarter, three quarters of the year. We're not going to do one in the winter because we don't want people getting out trying to come to a class when it's bad weather and cold and a lot of other things are going on. So what we want to do is have a spring, a summer, and a fall class for seniors. So if you're interested in that, or if you know a senior citizen that would like to take a class in basic computers, get in touch with the Black Family Technology Awareness Association. We can put your name on a list, and when the next classes are coming out, we'll have a list of people that we can contact to say. So if we have 100 names, we can at least contact 10, 15 of them each quarter to start going through and getting basic education, basic computer skills out to the people that need it. So you can contact us at BFTAA@gmail.com or at sbcglobal.net. Excuse me, KUAW is at gmail.com. BFTAA is at sbcglobal.net. So send us an email or text us or reach us on Facebook. However you want to. We're going to get a form up online where people can sign up for it. But we want to offer the basic computer classes to seniors, and that's senior citizens, those that are maybe 60, 55 on up. And we'll have that list where you can put it in there, and that way when we do our next class in the spring, you'll be notified about it. So that's some of the information that we want to give, that we're spreading out to just educate everybody. A lot of times we've worked on helping the kids and getting them ready for the work world or for the STEM, the science, technology, engineering, and math fields, but we maybe don't spend as much time looking at those that we don't want to get left behind, which are our seniors, those that came before us. So that's what we're offering this class about. Now, as we go on from that, we'll go to our next segment, which is what we usually do here. Is we give you some information from the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, better known as NASA. There are our research and development arm for space and for a lot of industry developments and improvements in flight and all of space exploration. So the National Aeronautics and Space Administration definitely is a cutting edge with technology. They're doing a lot of things with technology in air and space and all of that. So they do a broadcast letting you know what went on at NASA, and we're going to give you that. We're also going to go to NASA so that you can see what's up as far as in space, in the sky, in the night sky, that you can look up and see the stars and stuff, that things you can start checking out with just your naked eye or with a pair of binoculars and see that. So a couple of things we've got coming from NASA, and then we're going to get into some of the election information. So let's go right now to what's up at NASA. Let's see, we get there. NASA this week. Yeah, this week at NASA will be the first one.
An update on our Artemis 1 moon mission, the right moves for a small satellite mission, and a bright idea to search for water ice on the moon. A few of the stories to tell you about this week at NASA. NASA is still targeting November 14th for the launch of our Space Launch System rocket and Orion spacecraft on Artemis 1. The uncrewed flight test will send Orion beyond the moon and back to Earth. For updates, go to blogs.nasa.gov/Artemis. After a successful trajectory correction maneuver, the Capstone spacecraft is still expected to arrive in lunar orbit on November 13th. Capstone will test the same unique elliptical lunar orbit that the Gateway Lunar Outpost will use as part of our Artemis program. NASA's Lunar Flashlight is a small satellite that will use lasers to search for water ice inside the darkest craters at the moon's south pole. Water ice could provide a valuable resource for astronauts on future moon missions. Lunar Flashlight is targeted for launch in November. This NASA visualization simulates the lighting at the south pole of the moon for all of 2023 and gives you an idea of what some of the craters will look like from above. Data from our Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter were used to create this visualization. That's what's up this week at NASA. For more on these and other stories, follow us on the web at nasa.gov/twan.
All right, all right. Since we have a few more things to go into on the election side, we're going to roll right into the next NASA program, and that's What's Up at NASA. So let's go right into that now.
What's up for November? A lunar eclipse, the moon and planets, and the Leonid meteors. A total lunar eclipse is on the way to provide a little celestial magic early on the morning of November 8th.
Let's try
The eclipse will be
once again, because I want you to hear all of that so that you'll know what to look for in the night sky. Here we go.
What's up for November? A lunar eclipse, the moon and planets, and the Leonid meteors. A total lunar eclipse is on the way to provide a little celestial magic early on the morning of November 8th. The eclipse will be visible to viewers in North America, the Pacific region, Australia, and Eastern Asia, anywhere the moon is above the horizon while the eclipse is happening. For observers in the eastern time zone of the US and Canada, the partial eclipse begins a little after 4 a.m. It reaches full eclipse about 5:15 local time, and the moon then sets while still in eclipse for you. For observers on the west coast of North America, that translates to the partial eclipse beginning just after 1 a.m. and reaching full eclipse by about 2:15 a.m. You'll be able to see the entire eclipse unfold before sunrise, weather permitting, as the moon exits the dark part of Earth's shadow called the umbra a few minutes before 5 a.m. During a lunar eclipse, you'll likely notice that you can see a lot more faint stars as the usually brilliant full moon dims to a dull red. And during this eclipse, viewers with binoculars can spy an extra treat. The ice giant planet Uranus will be visible just a finger's width away from the eclipsed moon. Check your local details to find out if the eclipse is visible from your area, and find lots more eclipse info from NASA at the address on your screen. In the pre-dawn hours of November 11th, you'll find the moon directly between Mars and the bright bluish star Elnath. Elnath is the second brightest star in the constellation Taurus after reddish Aldebaran, and it forms the northern horn of the bull. You'll find that Elnath is about the same brightness as the star Bellatrix in nearby Orion, where it forms one of the hunter's shoulders. On November 20th, in the hour before sunrise, look to the southeast to find a slim crescent moon hanging right above the bright bluish star Spica. It's a giant star, 10 times the mass of our Sun and 12,000 times more luminous. Fortunately for us, it's located 260 light-years away. And in the evening sky on November 28th, a beautiful crescent moon hangs beneath Saturn in the south after sunset. The Leonid meteor shower is active throughout November. It peaks after midnight on the 18th with something like 15 to 20 meteors per hour under clear, dark skies. Now, the shower's name comes from the constellation Leo, the lion, from which its meteors appear to radiate. The meteors are dusty bits of debris left behind by comet Tempel-Tuttle as it orbits the Sun. This comet was actually discovered twice independently. On the peak night for the Leonids this year, the moon will be about 35% full, meaning it will interfere with your ability to see the fainter meteors. However, Leonid meteors are often bright, with trails, also called trains, that persist for a couple of seconds after they streak across the sky. And while the moon will be rising in the east with Leo around midnight, it's actually better to view the sky away from the meteor's apparent point of origin by lying back and looking straight upward, as any meteor trails you see will appear longer and more spectacular. Here are the phases of the moon for November. Stay up to date with all of NASA's missions to explore the solar system and beyond at nasa.gov. I'm Preston Dykes from NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, and that's what's up for this month.
All right. So that's what's going on with NASA. We've got one last thing to do, and that's going to be our space to ground. So we'll get some information what's going on in the space station up in the sky. So let's go now to NASA's space to ground.
Welcome to Space to Ground. I'm Jaden Jennings. Northrop Grumman has named the next Cygnus mission to the International Space Station in honor of Dr. Sally Ride, astronaut, physicist, advocate for diversity in science, and the first American woman to fly into space. The NG-18 mission is scheduled to launch on Sunday, November 6th from the Wallops Flight Facility in Virginia. The spacecraft will deliver more than 8,200 pounds of cargo for the station's Expedition 68 crew, as well as several key science experiments. On board Cygnus, the OVO space investigation will study possible changes in ovarian cell development and microgravity. The study will use bovine cell cultures in order to understand those changes. As we work toward a permanent human presence on the moon, this research seeks to identify possible treatments to protect reproductive health off the planet and could also improve or restore fertility in people here on Earth. Another study that will fly on Cygnus will look for solutions to prevent a disastrous event after wildfires. The effects of wildfires are devastating, causing loss of property and loss of lives. Even more damage can happen months after the event. When a wildfire burns plants, combusted chemicals create a thin layer of soil that repels rainwater. Rain then erodes the soil, which can lead to catastrophic mudflows that carry heavy boulders and debris downhill, causing significant damage. The post-wildfire mudflow microstructure investigation will evaluate the composition of these mudflows. Microgravity can unlock new understanding of these phenomena, which may improve modeling and prediction of their behavior. What we learn could support the development of ways to prevent and reduce catastrophic post-fire events. And now it's time for nachos, but not the type that you eat. The NanoSat Atmospheric Chemistry Hyperspectral Observation System, or NACHOS for short, flew to the space station in February. Weighing just 13 pounds, this prototype instrument could eventually make it easier to monitor volcanic activity and air quality in cities, neighborhoods, and power plants. Nachos will be the topic on this week's edition of Houston, We Have a Podcast. You can find it on Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, or SoundCloud, or find it on the NASA Johnson Space Center social media channels on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And that's Space to Ground for now. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next week.
Subscribe for more space.
We'd like to bring you that information that happens on Space to Ground every week, just so that we can stay up on things that are going on at NASA right now. Yeah, so let me see if I can get my background back. I lost it. Where'd we go? There we go. All right. So we got a background back in there. Didn't look like I was just out in the darkness of space right there. No, but it's kind of fun to play with some of the controls here. But sometimes we forget which ones to push, or we hit the wrong ones. But that's all right. We're going to get through it. But now I want to talk about the election tomorrow and some of the things that are coming up. A lot of you have heard different things from different people and that are running, but here's some of the questions that's going to come up. I'm going to start with the city of Kansas City. City of Kansas City is going to have 2 questions on the board. The city council approved 2 questions to be placed on the November 8th general election ballot, which, if passed, would help stimulate affordable housing throughout Kansas City, would upgrade our city's community centers and public pools in all the districts, and would provide necessary upgrades to the Kansas City Convention Center. Passage of these bond measures would not increase taxes, nor would they burden the city with additional debt, because the issuance of these bonds will coincide with the roll-off of existing bond debt. So this is put out by the city of Kansas City, saying that this wouldn't add to our debt because we're getting ready to pay off some bonds, and we'll just be putting some more bonds out there. So we pay off, it's like paying off your car and then going right out and buying another new car. But it wouldn't cost you any more because you're already used to the car payments. So he says, I am proud voters will see on a November ballot a bond measure I propose with strong council support, which would address deferred maintenance at our 10 community centers, would open pools equitably throughout our city, and would ensure children and families in all neighborhoods have playgrounds and parks that work for them. And that was Kansas City Mayor Quentin Lucas that made those statements. All right, the first ballot question that'll be there for Kansas City is, And you'll see that should the city of Kansas City should invest up to $125 million to improve parks, recreation, and entertainment facilities through the issuance of general obligation bonds. If passed, the measure would approve nearly $80 million in bonds over a 5-year period, which would allow the city to provide necessary upgrades to the city's 10 community centers, to reopen now shuttered public pools equitably, to fix historic fountains throughout the city of Fountains, among other necessary upgrades to several public parks, ensuring all Kansas City children and families have equitable access to our community's public spaces. Okay, the first ballot question, if passed, would allow $45 million to address the also to address the deferred maintenance needs at the Kansas City Convention Center. I guess that's Bartle Hall. Not only ensuring Kansas City is well prepared for such global events we're proud to host over the coming years, but also ensuring Kansas City can continue to recruit such events, stimulating our local economy and creating jobs in our community. Since 2016, Kansas City has missed out on an estimated $62 million in economic impact directly tied to the current condition of the Kansas City Convention Center. Without additional investment, the Kansas City is at risk of losing additional market share to peer destinations, which would further erode the economic impact of this community asset. So that's what we're going to do with the first $125 million on question 1. Now, the second ballot question, question 2, would ask voters whether the city should invest up to $50 million in housing creation and preservation, transitional and supportive housing, and home ownership opportunities. The bond funding would be used to leverage existing funding in the Housing Trust Fund, federal funding, and low-income housing tax credit to create sustainable housing in neighborhoods most in need, and would be the largest single investment in affordable housing ever made by the city of Kansas City. So that's another thing that they want to have, is to be able to do some housing improvements. In its first award cycle this year, the Housing Trust Fund funded nearly 500 new units of affordable housing, more than 120 of which units will be transitional housing for those that are experiencing homelessness, and 20% of all units will create housing opportunities for the 30% of those at the 30% area median income or below. So they're going to have some housing available. They're going to have some transitional housing to work with the homeless. So that's question 1, $125 million to work with the parks, the fountains, and the community centers. And question number 2, $50 million, for affordable housing. So both of those questions will be on your ballot tomorrow if you go vote, and I hope that everyone listening that is over the age of 18 years old will go vote. That's one thing that's up there. Now, the next thing is the state amendments. The one that you've heard the most about is amendment number 3. It's the Missouri statewide ballot would legalize the adult use of marijuana for those 21 and older, but people could still be fined for smoking in public. And the process of expunging past offenses is complicated. So they got a few things out there, and there's been people pro and against this. Now, this comes from an article that was put out by KUAW Radio. I was trying to give credit to who put this out. KUAW Radio, and I don't know if it's one reporter. I think there was one named at the end. It says follow Sarah. No, it's Sarah Kellogg on Twitter, and this is copyright of the copyright of the St. Louis Public Radio. So this is from the St. Louis Public Radio. So Sarah Kellogg is the one that put all this together. But it says here that the November 8th, Missouri voters will make their choices on 5 statewide ballot measures in addition to picking their preferred candidates. Of those measures, 3 were brought to the ballot by the state legislature. 1 is required by Missouri's Constitution, and the other made it through the state's initiative petition process. That might have been Amendment 2, which I haven't been able to find any information on. I'm going to look back through it and see if I missed it, but we won't get to hear about Amendment 2. If anybody knows anything about State Amendment 2, post it up here on our Facebook page. It'll show up on the screen. So if you have any information on Amendment 2, you can post it on the KUAW Facebook page, and it will show up on the screen. But most of the attention on Amendment 3, which if passed would further expand Missouri's marijuana program to include recreational use. But some marijuana legislation advocates have multiple reasons as to why they are not in support of the amendment. It makes everybody think, okay, this is going to work and we're going to have cannabis and it's going to be for everybody. Let's go. And that's not actually the case. And that's a little deceiving. And that's from State Representative Ashley Bland Manlove, a Democrat from Kansas City. During the past legislative session, Manlove was a co-sponsor of a bill that would have legalized the recreational use of marijuana called the Cannabis Freedom Act. The legislation had more than 15 sponsors, Republican and Democrats. It also had the testimony of over 80 people in its favor and fewer than 20 against it. However, the 76-page bill did not pass, nor did any other legislation that would have legalized recreational marijuana. This means that either voters could choose to pass this amendment or wait to see if the legislature passes a bill in future sessions. So that's the thing. They didn't get the legislature to vote yay or nay. They just didn't vote on the bill, or it didn't pass. So I guess they did vote on it, but it didn't pass. But now it's a constitutional amendment that was brought up. John Payne, the campaign manager for Legal Missouri 2022, said he believes the legislature should have legalized marijuana already. I don't think they're likely to if this does not pass. I don't think it is likely that they're going to come and pass something that's in any way as comprehensive or anything at all, frankly, for the foreseeable future, Payne said. Payne said the legalization of marijuana would mean fewer arrests and free up more resources for law enforcement. However, there are limitations, including how much marijuana someone could possess at one time. For non-medical marijuana patients, the limit would be 3 ounces, while medical patients would be able to possess up to 6 ounces. So if you get caught with a quarter pound, you can still go into jail. Additionally, fines could still be issued for smoking in public. Not necessarily against that. You can't drink in public either, to a certain extent. I guess you can drink outside at some establishments, but that's been a law for a while as far as the alcohol is concerned. Eppen Thamby, a lobbyist who is against Amendment 3, said that because of the penalties, it isn't truly legalizing the use of marijuana. I kind of disagree with that. You can be fined for public consumption. They create an arbitrary possession limit. Now, that's a little different because I think with alcohol, you can have as much alcohol around as you can buy and afford, and you're not in any breaking any law. But the public consumption, you can't do, or only in certain places can you do that with alcohol. And they actually create a constitutional misdemeanor if you exceed their possession limit of 3 ounces. Thamby said, and they don't remove statutory felony penalties or remove marijuana from the drug schedule. So all these elements are, to me, they're not legalization. Payne said that other states have legalized the adult use of marijuana also have possession limits because cannabis is still a federally prohibited substance. So it's still considered a drug or something that you can't use. So the federal government has not legalized it, even with states that have. Oh, now somebody's calling me, and I know that's gonna have to wait. Um, Let me see, just a second. Yes. Yeah, I'm doing a show. All right. Okay. So that's some of the things that are going on here as far as that. I have to answer it if it's the wife calling, that's for sure. Additionally, anyone incarcerated for certain marijuana offenses would be able to petition the court to vacate the sentence as well as be immediately released from incarceration with their records expunged. So Payne said the expungement provisions in this amendment is a reason why voters should approve it. So those are some of the things that are going on. There's a lot of other information. Says you see, Thumpy said there are logistical and practical issues why requiring the circuit courts to implement these new expungement measures. What happens if we get 6 months down the road, the circuit courts are in a mess of wading through tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of criminal records, and that's clogging up other more urgent issues in our court system? Well, the state judiciary has already included an additional funding request of around $4.5 million to go toward these new requirements for fiscal 2024. Legalizing marijuana is expected to generate millions in tax revenue for the state. Allowing Missourians to use recreational marijuana is only part of the amendment. It also makes changes to the industry, and that's a thing that some people are looking at. Under the amendment, Payne said a minimum of 144 new licenses to sell would be issued, but critics say that it's the existing businesses that already have a license to sell marijuana that are going to benefit the most from the new system. So Jay Nelson of B Leaf Medical, which already has medical marijuana business, is in favor of Amendment 3, but he does acknowledge he would benefit from the state expanding marijuana legalization to include recreational use as opposed to others without that existing business model. So I think those of us who are truly engaged in this space are supporting these types of groups can admit there's more work to be done. Nelson said that recreational marijuana, he can put more back into Missouri. I can more robustly invest in community improvement initiatives. Yeah, just like the liquor industry. I can start to partner with local organizations and begin to go through businesses, incubators, and really support some of the outcomes that are prefaced in this initiative. Blandlove said that because black and brown people have been historically the most negatively impacted by the war on drugs, any initiative or law that legalizes marijuana should have programs that specifically aid the same populations. She calls the amendment's micro-license program, which Payne said gives opportunities to groups that have had prior difficulty breaking into the industry, a kiddie meal. You have to wait 500 days until everybody else has gotten their license. Then you have to wait again for a micro grower to harvest because the micro businesses can only interact with other micro businesses, Blandlove said. So they have to wait for the micro grower to come up so the micro dispensary can have products to sell. While Legal Missouri 2020 alone has spent millions in its campaign to persuade voters to approve, Amendment 3, the amendment success isn't guaranteed. Recent polls have been mixed. Both Payne and Thampy remain confident their respective side will win on November the 8th. So that's the information I have on Amendment number 3. That's the legalization of marijuana. So there's some people for it, some people against it. You can get this on the web. I pulled all this stuff down myself. Amendment 1 is another thing that's on there, and it centers around the Treasury Department should be able to invest municipal bonds. If passed, it would allow the legislature to expand what the Treasurer's office could invest. So that's going to be, currently there are only 7 investment types that are permissible for the office. Those include time deposits, U.S. Treasury and federal agency securities, and repurchase agreement. Passage of the amendment would not only allow the Treasurer's Office to invest in municipal bonds, but also give power to the legislature to expand where statutory changes can be made for allowable investments. Any change would have to be passed by the legislature, approved by the governor, and then further approved by the Treasurer Office Investment Committee. So they're trying to see if they can spend money in different places. That is amendment number 1. Amendment 4. Now, this is one that's very important to Kansas City. Let's see, Amendment 4. If voters approve Amendment 4, the state would force the Kansas City to increase the funding for its police department. The amendment authorizes a law passed by the legislature this past session, raising the minimum amount Kansas City must allocate to its police department through December 2026. The law increases spending for the police from 20% of general revenue to 25%. Though it is a statewide vote, the result would only affect Kansas City. That's strange. Proponents of the measure said it would better support the city's police, while opponents argue it's removed Kansas City's authority to control its own funding decisions. So that is a strange thing, is that a lot of the people that want the federal government out of their business and not telling them what to do locally want to, from the state, say what you have to do for the police, to say you have to give 25%, 1/4 of your current general revenue to the police department. Now, it's already given 20%, so we already give 1/5, but now the state wants to tell Kansas City, and this is the only city in the state of Missouri that they're telling this to, is how much money to spend. Not St. Louis, not Springfield, not Joplin, not St. Joseph, not Columbia, not Concordia, not, Marysville, but Kansas City. So why is Kansas City being picked on with this issue? The police department, I haven't seen anything that they come out saying that they needed it, that they wanted. Of course, they're not going to turn down any more money, but there seems to be a little heavy-handed on our state officials, and this is my opinion, that we should give up 25% of our general revenue for the police, and that the state votes on it, not Kansas City, but that the whole state of Missouri decides what happens to the money that we take in taxes. That's a little strange one there, especially for the people that want smaller government and that definitely don't like outsiders in their thing. I don't see why the state's coming in telling the city how to spend city money. Okay, that's just my opinion. You can probably tell how I feel about that. Anyway, Amendment 5. The last legislature passed amendments which separate the Missouri National Guard into its own department. Currently, it is under the state's Department of Public Safety. According to the ballot language, the department shall be required to protect the constitutional rights and civil liberties of Missourians. So they want to change it from being under the Public Safety Department to the National Guard being its own department. Probably be a little more bureaucratic. I mean, we'll get a few more heads involved, but I don't know. We'll see. If passed, the measure will require Governor Mike Parson to call an election of delegates. Any changes would then be up for a vote for consideration by Missouri voters. Okay, the question of a constitutional convention. Oh, that was the next thing that we have coming up. Voters will also have to decide whether they want the state to assemble a convention to make changes to the state's constitution. If passed, the measure will require Governor Mike Parsons to call an election of delegates. Any changes would then be up for voter consideration. So that's a this question of constitutional convention is required to appear on Missouri's ballot every 20 years. So in 2002, 65% of Missouri residents voted against it. The Constitution can already be amended. We'll spend a lot of money again on deciding if we want to have a constitutional convention. I kind of agree with the people in 2002 that we don't necessarily need. I don't see that anybody's been campaigning on why we need to have a constitutional convention. But those are some of the things that you're going to have to vote on. Didn't get to the last story that I had. Well, I'll tell you that right quick. There's going to be an African-American woman to go into space on Jeff Bezos' space flight. I forget the name of his company, but it's Aisha Bowie. And she's a former NASA rocket scientist, founder of a tech company called STEM Board. And this is living out her dream. She's an aerospace scientist. She is a rocket scientist. And she's going to be the first black woman to fly aboard Blue Origin. That's the name of his company. So, he's been taking people up from time to time. Now, why come that went away again? Man, I must be hitting a button that's knocking my logo off. But yeah, those are some of the things that are going on. So be sure, if you're registered, to go out and vote. We need everyone to go out and vote. All citizens, it is a privilege and a duty to go out and vote, to vote on these amendments, to vote on all the different things that are on there, and exercise your constitutional right. So I hope that you enjoyed that. I hope that it gave you something to think about, which way you're going to go, one way or another. But be sure and go out and cast your vote. It is yours. You should use it. Thank you for listening to the Black Family Technology Awareness Association's program, BFTAA and more. And this is George Walker at KUAW Radio. So glad that you joined us today. And be sure and join us every Monday from 5 to 5:45 for the BFTAA and more show. All right. Have a good one. Bye-bye.